Greetings, car fanatics. This is my 2010 Porsche 911 Carrera S, and after 76,000 miles, I have the rear suspension apart. In this video, I'm going to show you what the suspension looks like, so let's go ahead and take a look. I have the suspension taken apart because I was getting a rattling noise from what I believe to be the shock, and I'm pretty sure I know it's the shock mount. We'll take a look at that in a second. But while we have the car apart, I wanted to show you all the control arms and the various bushings so you could get a sense of what the condition of your suspension might be. And before we jump into this video, I noticed only about 10% of the audience is subscribed to the channel. So if you like this content and you're not already subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It really helps with the channel and algorithm and helps this channel grow. Okay, so let's look at these upper control arms first. They seem to be in pretty decent shape for their mileage. You can see that it's still nice and firm. There's not a lot of play. And when looking at the flex here, you have a little crack where this piece is separating from the rest of the bushing, but it's not completely separated. They don't need to be replaced right away just because they are providing adequate stiffness. You can see on this other control arm here, we have about the same level of stiffness, and there is some cracking that's starting to form. But this looks a little different because I actually took some polyurethane adhesive and put it on the outside. We're going to test this out just to see if it helps prevent this from separating. And over the next few years, we'll take a look at this and see if this is in any better shape than that particular control arm. And moving down, we have this control arm over here with a ball joint. The boot of the ball joint is intact. There are no rips or anything like that. There's no side-to-side play. This is all in pretty good shape. Now let's take a look at the other end of the bushing over here. It looks to be in pretty decent shape. My guess is if I took it out, it's going to have some cracking starting to form, but otherwise I think it's going to be intact because there again is not very much side-to-side play here. And moving down to the bottom, we have the hub over here, and this bushing is what the shock attaches to. And you can see here that this bushing is not in as good shape as the upper control arms. You have some cracks that are starting to form right there, and also on the other side of the bushing. This bushing, it's still somewhat stiff, but you can see here that that crack looks a little bit bigger. It's definitely not 100%, and the next time we go to inspect the suspension, probably 30,000 miles from now, we'll want to replace this. I don't know if they sell the bushing by itself or if you have to buy the entire hub that the brake disc and everything attaches to, but we'll have to deal with that. Alright, next we're moving on to the sway bar end link, and this is actually in pretty good shape. The boot right here is not torn. There's a good amount of springiness when I move it around, so that's good. The other end is the same. There's resistance when I move it around, but it's not just flopping all over the place. And this end link over here, it's not supposed to be real stiff. It is designed to flex and rotate, so it's doing a perfect job. Once the boot starts to tear or this thing is just like super flimsy, then you need to replace it. But otherwise it's pretty good. Alright, now let's take a look at the forward-facing lower control arms. So you have this lower control arm here that attaches to this coffin arm, and this is a bushing here that can get worn out. You can see that it's starting to crack on the outside, and then you have some other cracks here. It's okay for now, but it's starting to wear out. And here's the top view of that coffin arm bushing. You can see here that it's starting to crack and separate. Again, it's not completely separated, but it's starting to. So this is going to need to be replaced probably fairly soon. Going to this end of the coffin arm, we can't really see any damage to it, but I would imagine that the rubber is starting to crack. However, when I try to move the wheel side to side, that coffin arm is still providing sufficient resistance, so no major issues that needs to be replaced right now. However, again, I think 20 or 30,000 miles from now will be the perfect time to replace all of the control arms and bushings. Alright, so now going from the coffin arm to the control arm over here, let's take a look at the other end of that control arm. We can see there's a ball joint, the boot is intact, so I don't have any concerns here. What we'll do is when we replace all the control arms, we'll just do it all at once, and that will give us a good 50-60,000 miles out of the car without any issues. While we're at it, let's take a look at these subframe bushings. They look to be in good shape. I don't see any visible cracking or anything like that, so it's good that these are in good shape. We can see our axle over here. The boot is in good shape. There's no oil leaking, so that's good. So at the end of the coffin arm, we have this ball joint which attaches to the hub. There are no tears on the boot, no grease leaking out, so that seems to be in pretty decent shape. Alright, so let's look at the final component, which is the shock. So let's first examine the shock itself. Alright, so looking at the shock, we'll see here that it's nice and stiff. I have to put a lot of my weight onto it just to get it to go down. So a lot of firmness. And when I let it go, it comes up on its own and returns. So the shock is in good shape. We don't have any oil leaks or anything like that. I don't have any concerns about the shock. There are no issues with the spring. The boot itself is intact, no tears or anything like that. And the bump stop, unlike the ones in the front, are in very good shape. Moving on to our strut mount. This is where we have a problem, and I believe what's causing the noise on the car. Inside, you have this foam isolator. And you can see here that it's slightly compressed and it's very soft. I don't know if the foam isolator is like this brand new from the factory, but it is soft. For some cars, for some owners, this completely disintegrates and it's falling apart, and that's a source of a lot of noise. Now, I do have a new aftermarket OEM mount, and this has a slightly different design isolator, and it's made out of a different material. This one's foam, this is something else, but you can see that there's a thickness difference. It's probably, I want to say 3 or 4 millimeters. It's not that much, but I think it is enough for this to be causing some noise when I go over bumps. And looking at the firmness, I can easily squeeze this material over here. For the new mount, it's pretty rigid. I can't really move that. Alright, and looking at these mounts side by side, you can see the difference between the old one and the new one. So when I turn it over to the side, you can see with the new one, there is a pretty big gap where you can see the isolator. On the old one, that gap is pretty much gone because the isolator has been compressed over time. That few millimeters is enough to make the difference between a quiet shock mount and a noisy one. So if I hold this here and rock it side to side, you can see that basically this plastic piece makes contact with the mount, and that allows it to make this little chatter noise. On a new mount, if you tried to do that, it's not really rocking. So this top piece here sits flush against the body of the car, and then you have these the shock mount here that bolts in. But what's happening is you're getting that slight rocking when the car is under load, which is causing this plastic to make contact with the metal mount part, and that's causing some noise. So I have this new mount here. It's made by a company called Hamburg Technic, and it's actually not as good quality overall as the genuine Porsche material. You can see it doesn't have these stampings. This is made in Germany while this is made in China. And then looking at the top piece over here, you can see that the plastic on the Chinese one isn't very well finished, while the OEM Porsche unit is much better. The Porsche OEM unit is about $220 each, while this Hamburg Tech is only $120. However, the only thing I really need is the isolator. So I'm going to use the cheap Hamburg Tech isolator, which is actually, in my opinion, a much more durable material than the stock foam one. I'm just going to take this, and we're going to put it in our OEM mount, and we're going to use it as such. So we pretty much have, you know, all the good OEM bits while just replacing that isolator for $120 for each isolator, rather than buying the whole OEM mount for $220. So hopefully this new mount lasts longer than the OEM one because it's made out of that better material. Alright, car fanatics, so that's the condition of the rear suspension on my 2010 Porsche 911 Carrera S with 76,000 miles. I hope this video gives you an idea of what you may need to replace on your car. If you want to see the process for removing the shocks and replacing the shock mounts, I'll leave a link in the description below so you can check that out. Well, thanks for watching, car fanatics. I hope you liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Leave me comments or questions below, and be sure to hit the bell notification icon so you're notified each time I upload a new video. Thanks for watching.